I am super excited to be having the one and only Katherine Cole on this Decoded episode. Because Katherine is an American wine writer and journalist based in Oregon, and the executive producer and the host of a James Beard Award winning food and beverage podcast called The Four Top. Oh, she's also the mother of two, and probably more important than anything to me, a warm, loving, and funny person. And the reason I know that is that she was my roommate from college, like 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. Just kidding, but who's gonna actually do the math? But I'm so excited to have you here, Katherine.
Thank you so much for having me, Abby. This is such a fun excuse to get together and chat. I can't wait.
Totally. And to have some wine and everything. Did I miss anything in your amazing bio? I'm sure I did.
Well, you know what I realized is my Zoom bio says Vin Agency. That's actually kind of my day job. I'm the communications director for a creative agency that serves fine wineries, which is really fun.
Wow. So what's also super cool is that Katherine is going to be launching another book soon. And so that's going to be our next episode with Katherine. This is just going to be episode 1, but I couldn't have my fill of Katherine with just one episode. So we're going to have 2. We're going to dig into Katherine's life a little bit, talk about one of the books that, and I've bought a number of them, but one of the books that really touched me, which is Rosé All Day. And then we'll give you a sneak peek on the next one. But Katherine, tell us a little bit about your life story, because I remember when we left college and we both went off to New York and I stayed, but then you left and you went to journalism school. So how did you go from being a journalist to being a sommelier?
I don't know. So I went to journalism school at Columbia in New York, and I'm a wimp because a lot of my classmates at the time, this will date us, right, Abby? We're going to Bosnia to report on the war in Yugoslavia, or that's what they wanted to do. That was kind of the holy grail of reporting at that time. And I thought, I think I want to do features. So that was kind of the path I was on, was kind of lifestyle features, arts, that kind of thing. And then I became a magazine editor in Chicago after grad school, and just realized I loved editing the food and wine section. It just really spoke to me. And then when I moved out here to Oregon, here in Portland, we are in the Willamette Valley, which is arguably the finest wine region in the country.
Right.
So I realized I was surrounded by this treasure trove of great vineyards, great wine, great stories.
Yeah.
So I was freelancing when I came out here, and I realized I needed to specialize. So somehow I talked myself into a couple of magazine beverage columns so I could, I was writing about beer, cocktails, wine, but what I really wanted to do was write about wine. And after I'd had those for a couple of years, somehow I talked the Oregonian newspaper into making me their wine columnist, and did that for 13 years. And I did study with the International Sommelier Guild, but I only got through the first couple levels because I got pregnant and I was like about to.
Oh, that's funny.
In my test, you have to smell, do blind
taste.
Yes. And I was like, I'm going to yak. I'm going to go throw up and then come back and finish this, So I was like, all right, I'm not going to be a somm anyway. I've done enough of the studying. And so really just since then, I've been writing books. But recently it's been kind of nice making the foray into a creative agency because, your brain gets tired, your eyes get tired. Writing is exhausting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But you have this amazing podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And that's really fun to still be a journalist, but it's more audio. It's more using your voice. It's not as much of that, carpal tunnel inducing writing. And it has been so much fun. And, I have to say, being in the wine industry, the fine wine industry, is amazing. And there are a lot of really important stories, and there are a lot of really important issues like sustainability and migrant workers and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, you kind of feel like I'm covering a luxury product. Does this really matter? And, you know, my friends who are like saving people's lives always say, oh no, your work matters because we need wine to stay sane.
Right.
But the podcast was an opportunity to really dig into the issues that I think are super important that I was seeing every day in the newspaper. Well, newspapers don't exist anymore, but, you know, kind of those front page stories, quote unquote front page stories that intersect with food and beverage. And the food coverage at the time, I started this in 2016, really wasn't covering food and beverage in that way. It was just like celebrity chefs and hot restaurants and recipes. And I was kind of like, well, what about all the undocumented workers in kitchens? And what about, you know, what about sustainability? What about human rights? What about interesting ways in which food is really changing culture, like Instagrammable food, that kind of thing? Right. So I just wanted to dig a little deeper and kind of find a little more personal meaning. Not that wine doesn't have meaning, but I felt like I wanted to do more. Yeah. And so the podcast has been great because it's a roundtable discussion. So I get 3 experts, pundits, if you'd like, who sit and just talk, and we talk through the issues, and I learn so much, and it's really satisfying.
Yeah. I mean, that really resonates with me because I've spent my career examining what is seemingly banal, not that wine is banal, but seemingly just everyday, or we see it in a certain light, right? So in the case of wine, you may see it in the luxury light, or you may see it in the, okay, what do you pair, which foods do you pair it with light? Mm-hmm. In my world, I was in advertising for a while, and so I was talking about anything from insurance to Doritos, right? And now with technology, people kind of position it in these certain lights, but there's so much culture and there's so much story associated with all these things, because if we're going to use them every day, we're going to ascribe meaning to them, or there's going to be backstory, whether that's backstory around how it got to your home or how it got to your mouth, or it's going to be backstory around why it's powerful, why we need it, why we love it, why we hate it, why we keep it in our shelves and share it or not share it. So that really stands out for me. Do you have an example of something like that?
Well, I mean, when you were speaking, you made me think, this is kind of off topic, but I've always said that wine is a gateway drug to environmentalism.
Yeah.
Because I guess to address your point about backstories, because the more people learn about wine, the more they care about the way in which the grapes were farmed. And they find that the most highly prized, most expensive wines are the ones that were farmed not only organically, but biodynamically, which is what my first book was about, which is kind of a level of agriculture that's even more healing to the environment than organic agriculture. So yeah, and wine is all about backstory. It is all about story, because you sit down, you're like, what should we order? The somm comes to the table and they say, well, let me tell you about this family estate in Italy, and they farm their vineyard with horses, and they tell you this whole story, and you think, oh God, I want to taste that. And by the time you taste it, you love it, no matter what it tastes like, right? Because it's the story that wins you over. So I think that's so true. Wine has really made that connection, but I think you're right, Abby, that any product we interact with becomes sort of a talisman and sort of imbues this meaning. And it is important to think about that.
Yeah. And, sometimes it's taking the complex and turning it into something that we can appreciate, which I know you do super well in your books. One of the words you used when talking to me about your wine books was accessibility, that you want to make these seemingly sophisticated, high-end, luxurious items meaningful to everybody, which to me is very heartening. But what I also love, especially about Rosé All Day, and I really want to talk about it, is how you took something, pink wine, how you took something that we all kind of secretly loved. We wanted to enjoy it, but we didn't feel like us sophisticated folks could order pink wine, regularly. And what you did to make this not just accessible, make all these wines around the world accessible, but also you gave this, this kind of wine that maybe we secretly love but didn't want to talk about, lovable. You made it, you gave it the story that really elevated it. So I want to hear more about that. I really find that fascinating. How did you discover this passion for pink wine and why you wanted to write this book?
I mean, I always loved good rosé, and I mean, even I can remember, like in college, my parents and their friends would have access to some really good dry rosés. So I kind of didn't even know that it wasn't cool. I always thought it was. Um, something happened in the United States where we kind of fell out of touch with rosé and didn't realize it had a history. And I think that's partly to do with right after the Second World War, or during the Second World War, Portugal had a lot of excess grapes. And so it turned out these two really cheap wines, they were called Mateus and Lancers. And our parents drank them. And you can still find them sometimes. I think, what is it? Which one? One of them comes like in a jug, and the other one comes in this like terracotta, also kind of like a jug. And they were fizzy and they were kind of sweet and they were okay, but so it was kind of one of those flash in the pan, hot and then not kind of things. And then right after that, we got white Zinfandel here in the U.S.
Huh.
And that the thing with white Zin is it became the most popular wine in the country, but it was sweet, and so and it was cheap. So in the US, we had this perception that rosé was this kind of crappy sweet wine. And we never really learned rosé's long history. And in fact, there were no books in English, in the English language about rosé until Rosé All Day came out in spring 2017.
Wow.
The same month it came out, two other rosé books came out. So
Interesting.
it wasn't like I discovered the fact that everyone was suddenly drinking rosé, but there just had not been any, Nielsen, none of the market. What are those organizations, Abby? You know this better than I do. The organizations that study sales in the market, polling. Nobody had paid any attention to rosé. They hadn't even broken it out,
Right.
white, red, pink, and suddenly sales were growing by 65% a year. It was like, oh, okay, this thing. Let's pay attention to this thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then I started doing some digging, and I thought, it's quite possible that rosé is the oldest style of wine in the world. And for centuries in Europe, it was the finest style of wine. So I think people just have no idea that this wine that we've sort of been blowing off is actually possibly more prominent, more important than red or white.
Right. And let's celebrate that, right? Now, what are you drinking, by the way, in terms of rosé?
I'm drinking. I thought it would be interesting to pull up this. I actually taught about this wine in a class the other day. It's Chateau Mouza it's from Lebanon. And
Oh,
this family has been in Lebanon for 900 years.
wow.
They arrived for the Crusades, but we can forgive them for the raping and pillaging that their ancestors did 900 years ago. But more recently, they have been growing grapes and making wine through Civil War, wartime, and they make this very traditional style of wine out of indigenous grapes. And this is a wine that can age for decades. So
Wow.
it's kind
Oh,
of
cheers.
golden colored.
So it's not rosé.
It's rosé,
Oh, it is rosé.
but it's kind of a golden color. So yeah, I brought some. So, you know what? This is really annoying. I wear glasses most of the time. I just have to say this.
Yeah.
And when I'm on a Zoom, I notice I have like a permanent glasses mark
No,
on my nose.
it looks fine to me, I'll tell you that. Especially when paired with the rosé.
Yeah. Next time I Zoom, I will cover up my glasses mark. And so I also brought this. So this one is like maybe $60, the Chateau Star.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also brought. Oh, there goes my phone. Hey, quiet. This is Clos-y-Beaune. This is from a Grand Cru estate in Provence. Again, this wine is also kind of a golden color. It's not pink. And
Interesting.
they're allowed to use the term Tiburon on their label because they are the family that saved the Tiburon grape from extinction right after World War One.
Wow.
And they have these massive old wooden vats where they ferment their wine, and there's this layer of white on top of the vat because there's fleur, which is a kind of a yeast that grows on top. So this wine, which is the same thing that makes sherry so tangy and have its interesting
Yeah.
texture. So this is a rosé that kind of tastes like sherry. And I think that's about $40, but it's getting more expensive every year as people discover it.
Right.
And then this wine was $150. And this is Lopez de Heredia, and it's from Rioja in Spain. And they only release this wine once every like 10 to 12 years. So this is the current release. It's 2009, and we're recording in 2020.
So you're not opening that anytime soon?
Well, I could using my Coravan, which is how I opened this. The Coravan is this thing that just shoots a little needle through, and then it pushes argon gas into the bottle. So you can pour. You basically pour through the closed bottle. I should have brought it. So mine is rose gold.
Very cool.
Technically, I've not opened this bottle, but I'm having a glass of it.
Very cool. Well, so you'll have to show that little gadget in our next chat.
Oh, but you can't use it on sparkling wine, otherwise your kitchen will explode.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, speaking of next chat, segue. You are going to be launching yet another amazing book on wines. I know you don't want to give the whole thing away, but is there a sneak peek you can share?
Yeah, well, I told myself I wouldn't write another book after Rosé All Day, and stupidly wrote Sparkling Wine Anytime. And of course, then the pandemic hit, so publication was delayed by 6 months. And I'm hoping, as we record this, everyone's still in lockdown. I'm hoping that by the time it comes out in March, we'll all have a reason to celebrate.
Totally. I gotta say though, wine matters more than ever now. I'm surprised it's not like, being churned out.
Yeah. No, actually, sales have gone up, retail sales. And I was a little worried. I think I was speaking before as to the fact that the wine industry can feel a little tone deaf, and sparkling wine in particular just feels a little tone deaf. Like, we're celebrating and drinking champagne, and this is what movie stars drink, and it's overpriced, yay! And like people are starving right now, and they need food, and they're dying, and so it doesn't feel quite right to be like sparkling wine. But it is at the same time, wine is keeping people sane right now. And so I started a little initiative. I'm selling some products to kind of drum up excitement for the book. And 10% of proceeds are going to benefit a charity or a nonprofit that's really dear to my heart. It's called Ahivoy. That's AHIVOY. And it provides education and career opportunities to vineyard workers, many of whom are migrant, immigrant. Let's not talk about whether they have papers or not, but they are working so hard so we can drink our luxury product, and it's time for the industry to give back to them. So trying to kind of like make it a thing that does some good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win all around. It's a win for them. It's a win for us. And, not just to have some great champagne around, but also to know a little bit more about what's behind the wine, knowing a little bit more about us and all of the history and beauty of the experience of drinking it. So I can't wait to decode that book in our next session and drink some champagne together. So thank you so much, Katherine. Again, I highly recommend Rosé All Day. I read it cover to cover and had so much fun reading it. It was just really an enjoyable experience. And until then, I hope everyone enjoys their wine any time of day, any day of the week.
All day, yeah.
All day.